probably my favorite tool um, to use. And so what it does, so when you reflect feelings, you're bridging empathic, sorry, I said the wrong word, empathic understanding for your child. And so you're basically able to communicate that I notice where you're at and I notice how you feel, even if it's difficult for them to know how they feel. And so I tell parents a lot by reflecting how your child feels or how what you notice their feeling may be, you're actually helping them to process their feeling and understand in themselves, oh yeah, this is what I'm feeling right now. Because it is so difficult developmentally for a child to put the word to how they're feeling. So basically, you're verbally expressing the feeling that you recognize the child is experiencing. So, the example, a child may say, "This game is stupid and I want to quit." And so, when you are reflecting the feeling, you're going to respond with a reflection, saying something along the lines. There's different ways you can do this, but the one I chose is, "You're upset about the game and you would rather not play it anymore." And so what I did there is I got at the how the child was feeling, that you're really upset, and then also he wants to quit. You'd rather not play it anymore because you're so upset. Um, but let's say a child is looks really upset, but they're not saying anything, and they're just crying, or they're just um, maybe they're just throwing things and they're not verbalizing it. And so then you can still respond with how you think they're feeling. So you feel really sad right now, you feel really upset right now. Any of those are okay. Just being really getting down to their level and focusing on what you think it is in that moment.
Mhm. Yeah, the most important part of that is that you can keep it really simple.
Mhm. Yeah, I think something that I'll just bring up, because I know a lot of times parents will say this to me, that they tend to ask their child what's wrong, and in that I recognize that the parent is trying to further develop that relationship and help the child verbalize what's going on. And so basically, when we reflect a feeling, we're doing essentially the same thing, but the child is better able to have that felt experience in the moment, like we talked about in the last video, versus them trying to reach for something that's so abstract and not really being able to come out with a word, and then it just shuts them down. And so that's kind of why we tend to just state it in the way of, you're feeling this, it seems like you're upset. And so children have difficulty communicating it, how they feel verbally due to the development, like we just talked about. And so it allows them to recognize and process what they're feeling in the felt experience, and developing, this is a big part, developing that self awareness for how they're feeling. Because they're gaining it when you're reflecting, oh, you feel upset. They're gaining, oh, I am upset, and being some more self aware.
Yeah, I think that's one of the tough things is that a lot of parents come and say, I noticed my child really struggles with becoming overwhelmed, and it just seems like things go from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
Well, and so they really want me to help teach their child coping mechanisms or something like that. Well, absolutely, yeah, that's necessary. And part of what goes into teaching a child coping mechanisms is helping them develop their own sort of internal thermometer for when they need to utilize their coping mechanisms. And so this is a foundational step in helping them develop self-awareness so that they can be really flexible in when, how, and which coping skills to use. So by reflecting their feeling and bringing awareness to, I feel sad, and this is how I'm reacting when I feel sad, or I'm angry, and having that connection to, oh, this is what happens for me when I'm angry, or I feel proud and this is what's happening for me, or I'm unsure, I'm scared. Any of those feelings, when they have awareness of what they're feeling and how it influences them, they're able to choose coping skills that are more appropriate for each circumstance.
Yeah, and I kind of relate it to, I use this example sometimes with parents, is if I'm upset about something, and then my husband comes in and just says, "Why are you upset?" I have this internal reaction of, how do you not know why I'm upset? Or, it kind of automatically puts me to feel a little bit defensive and not as understood. Whereas his intention is to connect with me and make me feel understood. So that's kind of how I relate it. Is you know if you've ever felt that experience in your relationships, it's similar with children. Of sometimes they just want to be understood in that moment, whereas um, instead of kind of having to explain their emotions to someone.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is, I'm going to relate it to adults quickly. This is a funny example. I guess if you're in my family, you just have to get used to being made into a guinea pig. But yesterday, my husband was really frustrated because when all of this coronavirus stuff started happening, he decided that he wanted to order a couple of weights and things that he could use at home, so that he could have some fitness experiences while we're social distancing. And so he ordered, a few kettlebells and some dumbbells about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they haven't shipped yet, and he can't figure out what the tracking number is supposed to be. He can't figure out any of the things. So he called them yesterday, and he was so frustrated on the phone that because they lost some of the weights, and then it's going to be another 2 weeks before they came in, and on and on and on. And he just was so frustrated, and he ended up canceling the order. And we're going to use some household stuff instead. You just have to make do. Um, and and he just was really upset and really frustrated, and eventually he came back around and he said, I think it's just feeling so out of control. I'm not mad at them for messing up my order. This has got to be one of the most chaotic times ever. And they are going into work and trying to ship out gym equipment, of all things, in order to help people feel well and in order to help people deal with their stress right now. And um, there's no reason for me to be mad at the customer service person. There's no reason for me to fixate over whether or not I get a 35-pound kettlebell. But it's that feeling of lack of control that, as a consumer, I'm really used to having control over the things that I order and when I get them, and shipping guarantees and all of that stuff, and realizing we have control over almost nothing anymore.
Yeah.
And so his feelings about wanting gym equipment really weren't about the equipment. They were really about that control stuff. And so, I use that example because I think that can be true for all of us, that we need to be aware of what is bringing up our emotions. And so if it's control, well, I can't have control over this. And so what can I have control over? What can I focus on? Because that really guides us in how to solve the problem.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point too. Of, if your child may be coming out as frustration or being upset, but it could be kind of other emotions too, like disappointment or confusion, or like you feel out of control, like you said. So that's super important to kind of have those ideas in your head of being mindful of what your child the emotion they may be experiencing.
Yeah, and having that foundation of, when we really understand ourselves, it's easier for us to choose better solutions.
Yeah.
And so we have to start there with our kids, with ourselves, with the people
Yeah.
in our lives that we love.
Yeah, and one more thing that I'm thinking, because I know a lot of parents they'll they are so mindful about not wanting to label it wrong or put the wrong feeling onto their child. And I just want to give you some encouragement that um, the child is going to be better able to tell you if the feeling is wrong, if you go for it. And so because it goes back to that self recognition of what they are feeling and that self awareness. So if you say you're really sad about this, they may think about it, process it, and be like, I'm not sad, I'm actually this. And they're able to verbalize it a little bit easier just by you saying something that didn't quite fit, but it was close.
Yeah, and to say you feel sad and get it wrong still feels a little bit more connecting than what's wrong, because it takes a little bit of a risk on your part. It's vulnerable on your part, and it shows that you are attuning to them and you're looking and you're present. And so just by giving the best feeling word that you can come up with, it will help create a collaborative process where your child can become a little bit more aware of how they're feeling.
Yeah, I like that.